Welcome to Virtual Lunch in the Exhibit Marketers Cafe. I am Marlis Arnold, and welcome back. I know now that we're going every other week, we're not seeing each other quite as often, but welcome back to Virtual Lunch. We've got a great topic of conversation today. It's been getting a lot of buzz already online, so we'll get to that in just a few minutes. But as always, I have a few news and updates and things to share with you before we get there. Of course, it's football season. I just have to share. It's like, yay, we are so excited here in Kansas City. If you're one of the other teams that recently got knocked out, my apologies, but since last year was the first time we had a winning team, it's really exciting to be able to be doing it again. But although it's weird, it feels very different than last year, I guess, because, we're not all out celebrating like we were then, but the picture that I just put up, that was from last year. So at least they're able to repurpose the things that they made last year. So looks like we've got some comments already. So we've got Chloe here from Portland, Oregon. And Rama is here. She says, happy 2021 from Lev Promotions in San Diego. So always good to have you here, Rama. So go ahead and just keep putting those announcements of who you are and where you're joining us from. Keep typing those in the comments and we'll put those up as we go along. All right. So speaking of football, and today, since our topic is virtual events, if you think about it, football games on, TV football games are virtual events. Essentially, we are not physically there for the most part. And so we are watching them virtually. I know a lot of people hate that term, but we're going with it just because that's kind of the common term. But anyway, so Nickelodeon, the kids network, is actually owned by the same company that owns CBS. So they actually did, in case you're not aware, the Bears versus Saints playoff game was broadcast on Nickelodeon as well. So Alan's going to put my husband Alan is behind the scenes here. So this is the link to that. They actually broadcast on Nickelodeon. They had SpongeBob. They had when they would score a touchdown, the slime cannons went off in the end zone. Now, obviously, all of this was overlays, so it wasn't actually sliming the guys as they played, obviously. But so that's an article about it, and it really kind of lays out what they did. That is the link, which if you're watching in YouTube, by the way, if you click in the description of this event, there's actually all these links are in there. If you're on Facebook, my Alan is putting them up. I'm like surrounded by Allens today. It's crazy. But anyway, he's putting those links up in Facebook as we go along. So anyway, I am falling way behind in the comments here. Nicole is here from Denver. So good to have you here. David Novin is the owner of Capture All Photo Booth. They leverage everyday customers by turning them into micro brand ambassadors. Okay, so good to have you here, David. Matt Gonzalez is here from Champion Logistics. Kenji Hartunian from Culver City, California. We got people all over. David is also in Denver, so we got 2 Denver people here today. And Ashley Stevens is here from New York City. So this is great. Wow, we got people from all over the country. I love it. I love it. All right. So anyway, so talking about the football and then moving on. Let's see. So the next article that I'd like to share is about sales and marketing in 2021. And it was a really good article because it talked about the things that we're tired of. And so we're tired of things like lack of authenticity, fake empathy. So there was a lot of different things about what people are tired of, especially after last year. I mean, especially they talked about the fake empathy of, trying to sound like you're empathizing with people and the situation they're in, and it's not really genuine. So anyway, so they were talking about being more genuine in the marketing. And then they talked about how it's a year of trust building and being magnets, not hunters. So it's a really good article. So I'm watching for that link. But in the meantime, we've got all kinds of more comments here. Matt says the Bears could not get in the slime zone. Maybe they didn't want to get slimed. Chuck is here from St. Louis. Go Chiefs. Yeah, Chuck. Good to have you. Wendy is here from Genesis in Connecticut. Melva's here. Melva was our guest last time from LaJoy Plans. She says it's great to see everyone again. I'm having a hard time keeping up here. It's scrolling really fast. Kevin Carty is here from Portland from Classic Exhibits. Rich Vallister finally made it. Yeah, Rich. Yeah, where have you been all this time? From Frederick, Maryland. And Mel is also here from Classic Exhibits. And Marco is back from Italy. So good to have you back. I think everybody's kind of getting back in the groove again now, you know, after all the holidays and kind of trying to get our footing again. Oh, Chloe says she's also from Portland. So we have quite a Portland contingent today. All right, so here's that link for the Year of the Business Building Magnet article. So I think that's a really good one you want to go check out. And let's see. So the next one is kind of tying into our forward thinking and also football. It's called Game-Changing Ways to Forward Think. So this one talks about incorporating new systems. And so they had some really interesting ideas. And here is the link for that one. But they had some interesting ideas. So like keeping a running list of firsts. And I thought that was interesting because, you know, talking about what's the first time you do something, you know, and we're looking at, you know, our whole industry, we're doing things for the first time and we're doing them differently. So I thought that was a cool perspective. And then they said, lead something every week. And it doesn't have to be major, you know, becoming a big time leader, but just leading something, taking a leadership role every week, and then starting a notebook of now. So anyway, and then there's more ideas, but I thought that was a really interesting perspective on, you know, kind of instead of just the whole New Year's resolution thing, but like starting and doing some different and new things. Oh, I also wanted to share last week, I actually had the privilege of being interviewed on, let's take that down, on the Institute of Virtual Lunch and Learn series. So if you haven't checked out the Institute of Virtual, you'll see down at the bottom of this banner, there's some information. You do have to register on the site, but it's free. But anyway, so you might want to go check that out. I talked about the virtual exhibitor experience. So you can learn more about that. And Alan, I think you've got, oh, yep, he's right on it here. There's the link for that. But if you just go to instituteofvirtual.com, you'll find my interview on there. Chloe says, on the topic of first, I highly recommend Brene Brown's podcast episode on FFTs in the series Unlocking Us. Yeah, Brene Brown has some great thought leadership. So, yeah, good shares. All right. Let's see. What do we have next? Oh, an airline analyst predicts when service will begin to recover. So, and it's kind of a complex thing. It's, you know, because they've had to scale back so much, they're not going to be able to just flip a switch and be able to have, you know, all of the service open again to cities all over the country. So it's going to get challenging. Even as we start to have live events, face-to-face events again, it's going to be challenging for the airlines to keep up and to have enough space available for us. So here is that article from MeetingsNet. So I encourage you to check that one out. And then convention centers and hotels. I mean, convention centers have really stepped up during all of this. I mean, last year they became field hospitals. Some of them have been homeless shelters. Now they are, a lot of them are setting up as vaccination centers. So we've got an article on that in TSNN about how the convention centers are being transitioned. So again, you know, since we're not having events right now, I think it's great that the convention centers are becoming community service tools and centers for that. And then hotels are also stepping up because, you know, again, they have a lot of space that's not being used at the moment. So here's an article on that where the hotels are stepping in and offering their space as well. I do want to just point out a couple of quick housekeeping details and things before we bring on our guest, but virtual lunch is now taking place on the second and fourth Tuesdays. So we're not doing it every week like last year, but I did want to keep it going. So we're going to do second and fourth week. And then occasionally we'll do some networking gatherings as well. So watch for information on that. And then I also want to point out, let's get to the right screen here. In the Exhibit Marketers Cafe community, which I am revamping, I'm moving it over to a new, entirely new platform. And so it's going to be more like a social network. So here is a shot of that. So you can see it's going to be more of a community. That's really what I wanted it to be all along. So, but what I wanted to point out is that I've got a new workshop that I put together called The Road Ahead, Trade Show Marketing in 2021 and Beyond. And so this is going to be exclusively available in the Exhibit Marketers Cafe community. So if you would like to check that out, like I said, totally free. So all you need to do is just contact me and request access. We're kind of like Clubhouse at this point. It's by invitation only. So you can just contact me and I will get you connected so you've got access to that. Let's see, Chloe's got a question here. Any articles on ways the event industry is supporting the vaccination efforts? I feel like we all have skills the vaccination rollout is lacking and proved that with testing sites. Yeah, you are so right, Chloe. I think that all the time. It's like, obviously, they did not have a meeting planner in charge of setting up the vaccination plan because we could have had it all rolled out by now. So, but no, that's a really good question. I don't know who they're tapping into as far as the, I guess you could say the brain power of getting this rolled out. But yeah, I've teased some of my meeting planning friends in DC that they really should find a way to step in and take over. Let's see. Matt says, I have the best score on social page besides you. Yeah, Matt, he's talking about the community. Matt already is in the community, and so he's already racking up some points. And no, Wendy, the wait is not as long as Clubhouse. I am not as, what do I want to say? Not as restrictive. If you send me a request, I will let you in. Amy says, anyone else concerned that offering convention centers for vaccines has become another reason for shows to be canceled? I don't know that that's the case right now anyway. I don't think that's keeping shows from happening. Yeah, as we move forward, that make it tricky if they want to continue to use the convention centers and we start to want to need them again. Let's see. Nicole says there was one yesterday on LinkedIn. Oh, okay. So an article she's going to share. Kevin says he agrees with Chloe that we are built to do this. As far as I've learned thus far, it varies state to state, but other than using convention facilities, most have been done through Army Corps and other procurement contracts. So yeah, but I hope they get their act together soon because we all know we could have done a much better job, right? All right, so I think we have made it through all of our links and news for the day. So I am going to bring on our guest. And if you don't already follow Alan Yeselevich on LinkedIn, I highly recommend that you do so because the posts that he shares are so insightful and thought-provoking. And I always, you know how LinkedIn has that little light bulb and the little guy that's thinking for their icons. Those are some of the emojis that I use on a lot of his posts. But anyway, he's got some great ideas and we're going to get right to it here. But Alan Yeselevich is currently the head of marketing and growth at Excel Events, an all-in-one virtual and hybrid events platform. Prior to joining Excel Events, Alan led strategic marketing and growth initiatives at MC Squared, an exhibit, events, and experiential company that worked with global brands including Canon, Samsung, Motorola, Unilever, Netflix, Bloomberg, and Nike. So, Alan, welcome to Virtual Lunch.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the kind introduction. Wow. I should come back every other week then, sounds like.
Yeah, whenever you need a boost, right? You just come back to virtual lunch. But no, it's true. I mean, you always I can tell that you're not just like throwing out, just spur of the moment things. You really put a lot of thought into your posts before you put them out there, and you've started some industry groups on LinkedIn, and so you really are out there and helping everybody try to move forward. And that's really what our topic is for today, is about moving forward, because those of you that are on my newsletter list, you got your newsletter this morning and you saw that my whole thing right now is, the road ahead, and trade shows are not going to be like they were. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, we're reimagining and reinventing, and a lot of that is tied in with virtual. And so when I first asked Alan to be a guest today, it was because he had written an article on LinkedIn about why modern marketers and how modern marketers can thrive during disruptions. So I think that's a really good point to just start with and talk about disruption and how do we make the most of this situation?
Yeah, totally. I think that's a great place to start. Look, 2020 was such a difficult year for the industry. Everyone was impacted one way or another. It was an incredibly difficult year for myself professionally, but I feel like there's still tremendous opportunity. We can all agree that the trade show industry has not evolved as quickly as some people would have liked, and if anything, this pandemic has created this rapid evolution. And whenever there's disruption in an industry, there's opportunity, and that's kind of where I'm coming from, where as difficult as last year was, I do feel if you're savvy enough to find ways to innovate and insert yourselves in a way that can deliver value in the new climate and what the future of events will look like, you will come out ahead. And that was essentially where I was coming from, because a lot of my colleagues, friends in the industry have been impacted. So, when I start to think about the future of events, and that's the majority of where my thought leadership is coming from, I want to help out the community. So I feel that the entire landscape of events, and specifically as an event professional or an event marketer, there's such a big opportunity. And as so-called traditional event marketers who worked in trade shows and exhibits have been reaching out to me for some advice or just mentorship, I'm fully transparent with them, and I tell them to start thinking more like a growth marketer and less as an event marketer. Because with digital, you have the opportunity to drive revenue for the organization like you've never done before. And at the end of the day, when you're working with a brand or internally with a CEO, a CMO, or CFO, they care about the bottom line. And never before has an event marketer been able to drive revenue for an organization and then show the results. And that is the opportunity with virtual. So as an event professional, you have to be comfortable going outside of your comfort zone. And you've probably been doing something year over year the traditional way. Now's the time to upskill, reskill, reinvent yourself by learning and thinking like a digital marketer, and thinking more about how you can provide growth for the organization through the lens of events. So that was the genesis of the article that you referred to earlier.
Well, and like you said, our industry has not necessarily been one of the most innovative and rapidly changing industries out there. And so all of a sudden to get thrown into this and being forced into doing the innovating, I know for years I've been trying to shake things up and get people to try new things and get so much resistance. In my newsletter today, I said it's like pushing a car up a hill with the brakes on. And that's how it's felt a lot over the years, is just trying to get people to try new things. And now all of a sudden people are trying new things, and yes, there's some that aren't working, but there's a lot that are working really, really well. And there's some things that, and I know before anybody starts typing in the comments that yes, there are some virtual trade shows that have been horrible. That didn't work at all. But there's also some that have been very creative. For example, last week I sat in on NAMM's Believe in Music Week. And they actually did one session that was very creative. That was, I guess, at the actual event. I've never been to, but at the actual event, they have what they call room full of pianos. Well, they did world full of pianos where they had 5 different people on video playing, but they had the sheet music available. So people were able to join in and play along from all over the world, wherever they were joining from. And I thought that was such a cool thing. And so, some of these things that people are doing are innovating in ways they could never have done before.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I totally understand how difficult it is to put yourself out there and start learning a new trade or new skills that you may have not been familiar with. But the reality of the situation, and this is where I feel I might be a little controversial, is I don't think we're ever going to go back to what trade shows and conferences used to look like. And I'll be the first one to agree. I've been on some terrible virtual events. And early on in 2020, I think it was more about discovery. People were experimenting. It was the first time they were getting their feet
Mm-hmm.
wet in a virtual event, while 2021 is going to be more about optimization. The
Yes.
landscape of options, the spectrum of different virtual event platforms are very wide, right? So there's something for everyone, and they're nuanced. There are some platforms that focus on a 3D trade show, avatar, SimCity type of environment, and there are others like Excel events that focus more on high quality live streaming, gamification, attendee networking. So I think even in the last year, there's been so much evolution in technology that is making the event experience so much better. And I also think that people are comparing in person to virtual, and that's a bad comparison. Virtual is different. If
Right.
anything, they're complements to one another, and they're going to be the perfect recipe for a hybrid event landscape in the future.
Yes, yes. And I totally agree, because it's something that it's an enhancement to a face-to-face event. And the one thing I think that show organizers are finding as they're doing more of these virtual events is they're tapping into an entirely new audience of people that have never been able to come because they don't have the travel budget, or, they just, for whatever reason, they can't come. Accessibility is another big issue as well. But it definitely gives them a whole new audience to tap into, and it's a whole new way to reach people. Let's see. Chloe had a question here. Would you say certifications are a hindrance to creative thinking and innovation?
Yeah, I would say no. I think by getting a certification, you're essentially educating yourself, right? So it isn't a hindrance. And a lot of the certifications or programs revolving around digital marketing and growth marketing that I've seen offer you the framework that you can educate best practices and then insert your own layers of creativity around it. So I don't think it's a hindrance. You just have to take the time to find the right one for you.
Okay. And Nicole says that as event and trade show marketers, it's important to learn and help clients navigate how to leverage sponsorships in virtual. These events will need to make money soon. And I think that is one of the
Yeah.
biggest problems with virtual right now, is because so many of them last year, especially, did free, and that is not a revenue model. But
Yeah.
as we're moving forward, I think there's still that perception, at least, like, virtual is not as valuable as in person. And so people are feeling like the show organizers are feeling like they can't charge as much for it. And, so how do we move forward and really prove that virtual is a valuable tool?
Right. Great question. This is obviously top of mind for everyone. How do you make money with virtual events while also delivering value to both the brand, the host, and the attendee? I actually spoke about this in a room on Clubhouse last Friday. It was such a hot topic. We had event technology founders, we had event organizers, and people just generally interested in events. And early in 2020, yes, people were doing virtual events for free because they were testing it out, and all they wanted to do was get attendees to sign up and attend it and check it out, right? It was more about brand awareness than revenue generation. The solution going forward, or at least one of the recommended solutions, is with virtual events, you have the opportunity to create a community around your events. So
Mm-hmm.
by definition, an event is a defined timeline of a social gathering, whether it's in person or virtual. Now that more brands are getting comfortable with the notion of congregating virtually online, you can extend that event year round. It can be a community
Exactly.
where you can deliver value. And the event that you host essentially creates content that you can repurpose and disseminate and convey throughout the entire year. Now, if I'm an attendee, yes, maybe attending a 2-day event, I'd like to go for free just so I can get access to some of the topics and some of the subject matter experts and network. But if I want to be part of a year-round community where I'm consistently getting fed value, then I'd be willing to pay a membership fee or a subscription fee to be part of that. So
Mhm.
the framework that I'm envisioning, and actually Freeman published it in an ebook recently, is that the event landscape is now going to be 365, 24/7 year round, where you're going to have a handful of physical in-person events, and then you're going to have a multiple of virtual events. But what's going to connect everything is going to be community, whether it's
Mhm.
within the event tech platform or Facebook or Slack or something proprietary, such as something you're creating, Marlis. Um, you know, Charging a membership fee is a way to start generating revenue in a way that traditionally the event organizer or the event marketer didn't even think about.
Well, and those of you that follow me and know I've been talking about this for 10 years, I did not pay him to say any of that. We're just of the same mindset. Kevin Carty says events versus exhibits is the critical distinction. Trying to recreate a traditional event will always fail virtually. Virtual needs to be an experience. When people think of virtual, they think of gaming, etc. And then he continues that thought. Virtual can be infinitely more valuable if people look to use it not just on a show floor, but use it in their existing sales and marketing strategy weekly. And that's exactly what you were talking about, Alan. It's like
Yeah,
it's got to be a part of the over. And that's one thing I've always said is trade shows are not a totally separate thing. It's part of your overall sales and
right.
marketing. And so it should be a part of the overall umbrella strategy. And I think that too many people have kept trade shows as this own little pocket. And
Right.
now they're suddenly realizing it's like, oh yeah, we can incorporate all of it
Exactly.
together. We got another comment here. I think people are becoming a little jaded about overhyped virtual events that overpromise and underdeliver. I feel people will be less inclined to invest and take a chance.
Yes.
Yeah.
So obviously, the barriers to entry for a virtual event are nearly non-existent. With event technology like Excel events or any other platform, it's relatively easy to create an event. So once that happens, yeah, you're going to get significantly greater number of events happening, and as a result, a large number of them are going to be garbage. But the burden then falls on the attendee to do their due diligence to figure out how they can best spend their time. And whether it's a brand that's credible and you're going to get value, or there's a handful of speakers who you followed on social media and you've attended their talks before, and that's going to be a good experience, or you have colleagues or peers in the industry who are attending an event and you can have workshops or roundtable conversations with them. Absolutely, it's a more cluttered environment when it comes to events, but the responsibility now falls to the attendee to figure out how they're going to spend their time and what events to attend. So, just because there's a greater number of choices doesn't mean it has to deter you from finding the best one for you.
Well, and that's definitely true. And Kenji weighed in and said there were definitely profitable virtual events last year. They required a level of savvy to deliver the value on the part of the management team. So yeah, and that wasn't to say that no events were profitable last year, but I think a lot of them were not trying that. It's like that wasn't their goal for
Right.
last year. It was just they were in survival mode. So you also have another article that you wrote that was about what event marketers should know about the future of events. And so we're going to put that link up here in just a minute. But, let's talk a little bit about you, because you mentioned in your articles about creating new processes and techniques and developing a digital playbook. So can you kind of expand on that thought a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that I look at virtual events is it's now going to be a tool within your marketing tech stack. Like you have a CRM, you have a social media scheduler, you have an email service provider. Now every brand is going to have a virtual event tech solution that they're going to use to have multiple events throughout the year. So you have to think less about events being these isolated enigmas that event professionals are working on that are sometimes even outside of the marketing function. Now with virtual events, it's holistically going to be included as part of this integrated omni-channel approach to marketing. And the biggest opportunity is with respect to digital or virtual for your attendees. They have to fill out a form, right? And the better tech platforms, you have the ability to aggregate and collect analytics on what the attendees are interested in, right? So where's the opportunity there? Once you have that progressive profile on your attendees, you can then segment them into different audiences based on what they're interested in, and then deliver ongoing marketing communication to them after the event is done. Or you can have niche events or mastermind groups where you can segment the audience based on their interests. So it's a way to include them into this cohesive year-long relationship where you can deliver more value to the attendee. It's no longer confined to the 2, 3, 4 day event. The events are now a gateway into your brand's ecosystem.
That's true. Yeah. And again, it goes back to the blending everything together and making it all a part of the process. Ramah says, your theory about getting value falls upon the attendee is always true. I think new attendees are less likely to be able to find value if they don't know what to look for because they are new. And that's where you were talking about in some of the platforms that they have that capability where they can actually, some of the ones I've participated in have been great because they make recommendations. It's like, you may be interested in this session, or you may be interested in this exhibitor, or this, meeting these attendees. And, having that kind of a more of a, again, it's a community feel. It's like, here is, since you've indicated you're interested in this, we recommend this. And it's going back to the whole thing that Amazon's done for years about, oh, if you bought this item, you may want this as well.
Right. And another way that you can find events that might be relevant for you is connect with thought leaders, subject matter experts on LinkedIn, follow them on Twitter, and see where those individuals are speaking or what types of events they're attending. And then you can cut through the noise and start attending events where you're going to get value from.
Well, and I think that's important too, is like and I think most of us have done a really good job about connecting. I know I've been a lot more active on LinkedIn in the last year, but just connecting to the network and building and you talked about that in your article as well, about building alliances and connections with vendors and with other people in the industry, and just building those connections. So I think that's a big part of it. So any final thoughts about, where we need to be really looking at and what we need to focus on as we move forward in the future of events and trade shows?
Yeah, I guess the major takeaway here is things are going to be different. Things are very different right now. And post-pandemic, we will start to revert back to somewhat of a traditional event landscape. However, it's never going to be the same. Virtual is now going to be a mainstay. And I think the quicker that you recognize that, the quicker you'll see the opportunity of how you can fit in to that equation. Look, on a personal note, 2020 was a difficult year. I'm an introvert by nature, but I told myself that I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to start to be more active on LinkedIn. I'm going to join communities. I'm going to network with peers. I'm going to find mentors. And through that process, I'm optimistic that I will get out of this disruption and chaos at a better place. So if I have any recommendation to the people listening to this right now, is put yourself out there, connect with like-minded people, but also connect with people who might deliver value in ways you never expected. And I think LinkedIn is a great way to start that journey.
That is so true. And of course, coming back to virtual lunch, this is a community that I've been building for almost a year now. And so it's just been great to hear all the thought leadership and the comments and things that people weigh in on. It's just, I think that all of us will be better able and better equipped to move forward if we're all working together and focusing as an industry. So thank you so much, Alan, for taking time out today to be our guest on Virtual Lunch. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Great. And thanks to all of you for joining in, and we will see you again in 2 weeks. We will have another great guest here on Virtual Lunch. And like I said, if you want to get access to the Road Ahead workshop that I've created, just send me a quick note and I will get you hooked up with that. And everybody go out there and let's just rebuild this industry and make it better than it ever has been. Thanks, everybody. Bye.